Today we're going to talk about future boardrooms because the future boardrooms are going to look like that. They'll have a robot in there for sure, an AI-driven robot. It'll be gender balanced and it'll be much, much younger. Those are the key drivers of the future, and that's why we have three young people here who are our potential board members for the future. So what we are looking at are companies like Accor and Deloitte and Unilever, Estée Lauder, Movenpick, Tag Heuer, all of them have young boards. Tag Heuer has a young millennial future board. Do you know what the average age of that is? 17. Because the watch business is going through an existential threat. So the 17-year-old can have an aspiration like the aspiration of a Ferrari when you grow up and you're an entrepreneur and you'll get yourself a Ferrari. It's exactly the same thing. The 17-year-old knows what's happening. The 50-year-old CFO doesn't have a clue. And that the whole thing is shifting. Therefore, all of these companies are actually developing young boards, future advisory boards. And that's why we brought these three young people in here to talk about their view in this world and in this change as far as the future is concerned. This is a study done by Deloitte. It's a very famous study. Young people do not feel, and I'm going to ask you this question, do you feel ready for Industry 4.0? What kinds of corporations do you admire? Are we looking at things as far as this is concerned? The first on our left is Aya Sadar. She's the incubator manager for Intellux. She's a super bright young person. Seen her developing and evolving over the last 2, 3, 4 years, and highly respectful to the kind of achievements that she's had. Harsh Sajnani, he is a mathematician, statistician, and now he's working in a fashion company. So go figure. And Sena, she was one of the graduates of the CEO for a Day program in Turkey. Out of 10,000 students, they brought it down to about 20, and she was one of them, and we'll share her experiences too. All of these people have come together to talk to us about how they see the future in terms of corporate board environments. So that's the first thing. Harsh, may I just start with you first, because you've done this before, you've seen this before. Mathematician, statistician, working in fashion. Dude, what's up?
Well, thank you firstly for having me here, and thank you everyone for coming. I grew up in Dubai, and I studied business maths and stats at the LSE in London, and after that I actually worked in aircraft leasing, which was more suited to what I studied. It was a lot of fun and everything was great, and I really enjoyed the work I was doing. It was very, very fun because I could work a lot with numbers. 6 months in, I realized that I needed a bit more of a kick from what I was actually doing. I needed some more job responsibility. I wanted to feel more like I was actually the one driving the change. I joined the family business, which was predominantly based in fashion, and currently now we are doing fashion distribution, working with international brands and building them in the Middle East. So that is a new division.
So one of the key questions, and I'll share with the two of you also, is that you study one thing and you do something else. What did you study at college, and what are you doing today?
I actually studied entrepreneurship at Babson. And
so you went straight through.
And I actually ended up changing careers.
Okay. What's next for you? What's your master's degree, and how do you take things forward for yourself?
I believe I actually will not do my master's, nor my MBA. Okay. Neither of those would make so much sense for me, since I teach entrepreneurship. I work with some of the brightest minds. Okay. So I feel like every day is an MBA, to be honest. So getting one might be a waste of money.
MBA, I think is toast. Masters, MBA is absolute history, and when we're talking about the future of learning, we'll go back into it.
Perhaps an executive MBA, though.
Indeed,
because you have more time to kind of.
Yeah, and also by MBA, I'm just saying administration. Who cares about administration anymore? It should really be about management of business thinking, an MBT, or management of business intelligence, an MBI. Those are the kinds of new degrees, and actually one of the things I spoke about here was the kind of new degrees that we're going to have. So the next degree that you might consider becoming an astronomer or a quantum physicist or a bioethicist or bioengineering. So you've done entrepreneurship, you understand business, but if you combine that with that, how does that look for you? Is that of interest for you?
Definitely. So I work for the Emirates Group, GE, and Dubai Tourism. So in each one of these industries, you're sort of confronted with newer challenges happening. Let's say, if you take aviation
Yeah.
by itself, I know maybe 20% of what I'm capable of knowing. So pursuing that in more depth is definitely of interest.
Thank you. Sena, bringing you in, you're a young brand ambassador, CEO for a day. If you were a CEO for a day for Abdul Latif Jamil, who's here, what would you ask Nilofer Hanum to do that one day?
Well, I think that one of the most important elements of a company, of our world actually, is diversity. So I would ask whether the company is diverse enough, not only gender-wise, but also ethnicity-wise and age-wise. As we talk, we need more younger people in our boards now. So this is one of the things, and also whether the company is responsible for environmental challenges, which is problem of our world, the most important problem of our world. So these were the two things.
Okay, think about the boards of today. The boards of today in the United States, in the S&P 500. Do you know what the average age of the boards in the US is? S&P 500? Any guess? It's 63, 80% male, and 80% plus white. And they're trying to manage business in our modern world. So, and if you've got 2 years to retire, what kind of decisions are you going to make? And I think that's the kind of challenge that we have. So one of the things that we are working on is what I call the 60-40-20 rule. The 60-year-olds are making decisions for 40-year-olds to execute and 20-year-olds, people here, to consume. In this environment, Aya, what do you think the kind of contribution you can make to a board?
So am I in the 20 category?
You're in the 20s. You're in the 20s segment. In other words, a 65-year-old manager at GE makes a decision, and they are not really connected with you, and then you are executing and saying, "What the hell is this?" So how do you link that? How do you bridge that?
I'll give an example, actually. So we had, GE had a software called Predix. I don't know if many of you are familiar with it. It's sort of like the IBM Watson. I had a startup called Dupes delivering your bags to the airport, and they were managing most of their baggage delivery on a tech platform. So they had met the Predix team, and then they said, "We're not interested." So that exact user insight, we used it for the guys who are 65 years old in the States to understand what's the usability of their actual tech platform. That way you get fast response on what's happening, and you're able to comprehend how people can actually use this product. Using that, they can actually, let's say, edit the future, right? So if you get people to use your product and understanding that they were your demographic, their feedback is the most valuable thing when you're trying to develop a successful one.
Cool. Do you think you're prepared for Industry 4.0?
Industry 4.0, I mean, there's a big way to look into that, of course. But before I get onto that, I would like to add on to that. I mean, if a company like GE is applying the methodology of the fact that you need to develop the product in a complete suite of applications and then take it to market, I don't think that is a lean approach at all. And I think that a leaner approach to kind of launching products with a similar sort of a beta version, getting feedback, developing it further, getting more feedback, and developing it further so that you can actually understand exactly what the consumer wants, rather than developing something completely, taking it to market, and then you're in a situation where you're not really sure what applies or what doesn't apply. So
I'll add on really quick, just to support my company. But today GE exists in that fashion. In the future, their boardroom will look a little bit different. I mean, if they've let me come in to some of these meetings. It just shows you how much they're listening.
Yeah, because all of these companies, I mean, Accor has got a millennial, 12 people that are all millennials below the age of 35 from different continents. Deloitte has a whole group out of Africa. Air France has actually got a young millennial airline component. Tag Heuer we spoke about. So all of these people are coming in, and interestingly enough, they are reporting directly to the chairperson and so on. And this is the kind of stuff, Sena, that you are doing, is that you get fast-tracked while you're graduating to go and make big decisions. When you go in there, do you feel that the oldies are ready for you? Excluding me, of course.
Well, that's why exactly I'm here, actually. So I want to share the story how I ended up here and working with you, being your young ambassador for Math Talks. I remember that we had a meeting with some of the huge companies of Turkey, and Tarık Bey was invited as a guest. And so those CEOs, we were going to match with them and spend a day, and he wasn't one of those CEOs as he was a guest. And they're all sharing their stories about the companies and stuff. And at some point he asked the question whether they're future ready or not. And seeing them struggle with that question made me think that Tarık should be the person I should be working with to be future ready, as we share the very similar values. I know that trust, empathy, and harmony will be defining the future.
Thank you. Harsh, when you came in, did your dad freak out when you started doing new stuff?
Oh my God.
Was he ready for the kind of change you were about to bring in?
So the thing is that, right, I mean, kudos to my dad. He built an established business, ran it for 30 years, and I definitely take a lot from him, and I learn a lot every day just being there. But the one thing that I would say that for millennials to come into an established business that's been running for, I mean, some of those companies have been running for more than 100 years, to come in and kind of just say that I want this, I want flying jets over here, people are going to travel by Hyperloop, is a bit unrealistic. And like, as much as it's idealistic and you would want it, the implementation is something that you need to be able to converse with someone who's been doing the same line for a certain number of time and kind of put it in their language. At the end of the day, you're not going to speak someone in English language to a supplier in in China, because he just wouldn't understand exactly what you want and exactly what you want to do. So in terms of that, I would say the way that how me and my dad, we had a very, very very smooth sailing system where any sort of thing that I wanted to do, I would need to firstly logically explain it to him and have that debate with him and get the buy-in of, since he is the CEO, get the buy-in of every single person at the ground level, all the way to the top, one-on-one, understand the entire process, and then be able to present it to him. After which, then I would have his approval to run it on the side and kind of test my concept until it was ready to be able to implement it across the organization. So it is a process, but I think it's the best way to kind of go in without.
Thank you for that. You're working for three monster large corporations. What kind of internal resistance do you feel that you receive when you go up that way? Because part of our thesis is that you should be the board. Yeah. These should be the kind of thing, and they should be parallel boards. And you report about strategy, about product, about technology, and about user experience. And these guys look at compliance and finance and perhaps things of that nature. What kind of resistance did you get, if any?
Definitely. Being quite young, I'm very ambitious and I'm very assertive. So if I want something to happen, I usually try to bring reason and explanation and understanding to the board. Everybody has an opinion, and a lot of people bring in excellent perspective, so you should never discount your seniors. You should always try to understand where they're coming from. Once you do that and you build their trust through first burning your fingers, you have to be fast, right? So you have to, unfortunately, ask for forgiveness a lot. Once they see that the product, the value is there, and you're explaining to them in terms of your KPIs, what you set when you started out, they start to build an understanding, appreciation, and then trust for what you're trying to do. Now, I've been allowed to sit in the presence of some of the most senior people in my company, all the way up to the COO, and they have put me on more projects, right? But I built that through time, I built that through trust and through an explanation of what I'm doing. Yeah. So I think it doesn't matter what age you are, and I say this to all the entrepreneurs that graduated from Babson, who started their own companies at as young as 17 years old. If you explain your age, then you're already at a loss. So you have to really understand the value you bring to the table. Yep. Know when to speak, know when to stay silent as well, yep. Super important, and always take notes. So that's sort of, that's my principle. Okay. in
Thank you very much for that. My thesis is slightly more accelerated than what I was talking about, because rather than spending all the time convincing this lot, let them do their, yes, you should go through that enrollment process, but what else can we do to cut through, because Moore's law is almost falling apart because things are growing so rapidly now. This is too slow. This won't work. So what we are now talking about is future boards, and one key component of that is going back to this, that if you've got older people making decisions and younger people executing it, what are the kinds of skills do we need to be able to go there? The first one is mutual mentoring. You talk about technology, product experiences, and so on, and they talk about wisdom, context, and stuff. The second is develop the right side of the brain. Go and take an art class, learn how to dance, do some music, do something cool, because it'll build new synaptics in your brain. And lastly, learn how to code. Get them to learn how to code. You want my respect, Mr. General Manager, Mr. CEO, you code first and I will listen to you. And literally when you start doing that, you change the dynamics of that conversation, and this is part of what we're trying to work on. So this is, we'd like to sort of come to the conclusion of this. Any last comments that you would like to make, Sena, as a young board member? Because, sorry, before she answers that question, what we're doing as part of this is putting together about 100 people, 100 young, smart people like them, assertive, focused, driven, and then they will start being matched, rather than the CEO for a Day program that you were being matched by CEOs. This group is going to be matched by other boards. So Emirates Airlines will have a board, DP World will have a board, and we are going to put forward people like you and say, this is your future board, reporting directly, cutting through the crap, which is the existing board, because they are too defensive in nature. Last comment, one takeaway for us.
Well, I'm hoping to see companies and having more young people on their boards, and while thinking of their profit, not losing the human touch, not losing the emotions in their work. And I think that's going to define our future. So that's a takeaway.
Thank you. Harsh, final thoughts.
Final thoughts with regards to the future boardroom.
Future board and this whole concept, and you know what? One takeaway: that is this cool? Do you think it works? Would you like to be a part of it?
I definitely think it works, because like in the business environment today, you'd see a lot of the companies they're kind of they need to trim the fat. And I feel like things could be a lot more lean, process could be a lot more optimized, things could be a lot more faster, data driven, and sort of automated. On that front, I feel like while all those things are great, and sure, a millennial can come in and spot these things, and you can have other people implement them, or the millennial himself. What I do feel what's important about all of these boards is a mutual understanding about the fact that as soon as this thing starts happening, there needs to be a sort of a mutual empathy from both sides to kind of, maybe I'm not going to take your advice today from the board side, I'm not going to take the millennials' advice today, but at least let me hear the guy out, because there must be something that's popping up inside.
Okay. Final thoughts.
Yeah, I believe in future boardrooms, including younger people. I believe that the answer is with the next generation. So I personally mentor a lot of young students, because I believe they will be at the forefront of change more than I will be.
Are you mentoring the older ones? You should be. No? Right. That actually is the big shift, and I think that is where the mutual mentoring comes in. You mentor the older ones, they'll mentor you. You mentor them for technology, users, and experience, and so on, and they will mentor you for context and experience. And I think that's part of the solution we have. Ladies, gentlemen, very, very nice conversation. Thank you for coming, and big hand for these young people.